Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa kafa, wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, amma ba'd. Some of the first words of the Declaration of Independence and the most basic ideas and ideals to which the founders of this republic aspired, and that have been kind of common notions in the history of the United States, whether or not we lived up to those aspirations satisfactorily or not during every chapter of our existence as a country and as a nation, are the words of the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed with certain endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I want you to pay close attention to the words. The words are very much in line with and very much similar to the concepts of the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam, that we honored all of the children of Adam, that as a human being there are certain honors and certain value that everyone was bestowed by their Creator with, and likewise that kullu mawludin yuladu ala al-fitra, that the Prophet ﷺ said that every child is born on the aboriginal state, the pure state, the organic state in which God created him, free from, or her, free from any sort of twisting or any sort of derangement which happens through bad choices and evil choices people make and have made for them as their lives progress. But everybody starts from the same place in the sight of the Lord in a certain number of very important ways. And when talking about the complete catastrophe and the complete atrocity of what's going on with our brothers and sisters in Gaza, as Americans, it's important for us to remind ourselves and remind others that this is mostly possible because of blackmail and because of bribery at the highest levels of government. AIPAC is one of the most influential, if not the most influential, lobbying group in DC. It literally, in the name, shows that it lobbies on behalf of foreign government with which they have kind of hand-in-glove coordination. Yet it's not registered as a foreign lobby, and they exert ridiculous amounts of influence, outsized amounts of influence on our government, which is basically an investment of pennies on the dollar, that they exert influence in getting people elected, and then those elected officials from Congress, from the White House, and from other branches of government, state, local, and federal, will then give kickbacks in the form of investments, in the form of free arms, and in some cases just in the form of outright cash. And when you look at how much money is being sent back to Israel, and how much money the Israeli lobby somehow magically can conjure up in order to influence these elections, you see basically it's a scam that you give them $1 billion and they spend like $10 million on elections, and it seems like a pretty scammy deal. On top of that, not every politician is easy to just buy out like that, although most of them seem to be. And so there's like these kind of higher level scams, like the whole Epstein blackmail through indulging politicians in their sexual perversions, and then getting evidence of that and blackmailing them. But the fact of the matter is that that's just the top of the pyramid. The pyramid is still relatively small. You cannot hoodwink an entire nation with just that. Rather, religion, as it's been used and as its function has widely been throughout human history, especially since the time of agriculture, almost exclusively, with certain exceptions, very notable exceptions, and notable because of their exceptional nature. It's just been a way for governments to exert soft power on people in order to get them to do stuff that you want them to do without having to physically coerce them, because hiring police officers is expensive and difficult, and hiring armies to beat people up and shoot them and kill them and jail them and torture them in order to get them to do what you want is expensive, and bribing politicians in elections and running Epstein sexual perversion, blackmail scams are really expensive. Person by person, you can't buy out the entire electorate. So one of the biggest scams that have been leveraged on the American people is this idea that somehow or another that Jews or the Zionist Israelis are somehow God's chosen people. The idea that God has a chosen people in the first place seems to be pretty antithetical to the founding fathers in this document. Very clearly, they say we hold these truths to be self-evident, meaning it's something that's just like it's just like a basic first principle that doesn't require even discussion, because it's self-evident. It's self-evident to everybody. It's like a postulate. It's like an axiom. It's axiomatic. It's not really something you have to explain to anybody. However, somehow or another, this bad theology has crept into the evangelical community and through there to other Christians in the United States, and from them, people who kind of want to be aspirational white Americans throughout the entire world, especially in parts of Africa, South America, and things like that. You'll see people, they take this bad theology, which is obviously not even something that any of the Christians who founded this country believed, nor is it something that they talked about. It's something that maybe in the later 1800s you'll see some people make mention of it. It doesn't take off until much later. This idea that somehow or another God has a certain chosen people, and that they have more right to life than others, even if those people are Christians, that they have more right to liberty than others, even if those people are Christians, and that their sin, their murder, their theft, their rape, their lying, their cheating, their stealing, all of these things are somehow specially sanctioned by God, and that we're supposed to kind of look the other way while those things happen. And in fact, it's a type of piety and righteousness to aid and abet them in those acts directly, or to at least look the other way while they're happening, which is very much embodied by the ambassador Mike Huckabee, who is himself an Assemblies of God ordained minister, and a man who's considered very religious even amongst serious Christians in America, not your kind of cartoonish looking politician who just kind of gives lip service by going to church on a Sunday while cameras are there, during election season while kissing babies or whatever. That they would have this fervor, and that they would, preach with this kind of deviant theology, which really essentially is a type of satanization of God. That the idea that somehow or another God would be so partial to one group of people versus the other, that he actually makes a two-tier system of humanity in which one morality doesn't apply to them, and in fact the definition of morality is supporting them in their immorality, where everybody else is basically kind of like a peon or a serf to those people, if not outright slaves, or if not outright people who have forfeit their right to even live, much less their right to liberty or the pursuit of happiness. This is really messed up. It needs to be called out. Christians, you guys need to call this out. If it bothers you that people, like Christians in America, convert to Islam in large numbers, and you'll see right now this whole war in Gaza is destroying the American economy. You see inflation and other negative economic factors are rampant. We're writing blank check after blank check to Israel for these really expensive weapons that seem to be not all that effective in a war against just a very ragtag group of unarmed and unequipped people. All of this stuff has to get paid for, and every time they take out more loans to pay for these things and to pay for medical care for Israeli soldiers, and to pay for, diplomatic and economic and political fallout on the world stage. People abandoning the hegemony of America over the world that was carefully crafted over more than a century, and they're just kind of like opting out of all of it right now and throwing up the deuces. That we're gonna have to pay for all of that. Right now we're sending money that you know about and that you don't know about, and it's all being paid for by bonds, which is what all it is depreciating the dollars that we have. So the money you have in your hand, it's not like, okay, your taxes are not increasing, but they're just borrowing money in order to pay it off, and then that money gets printed from nothing. And if every time you have $100 in the economy, if you print another $100, that doesn't mean you have $200 in your economy. It means you have $200, each of which is worth 50 cents. It's very simple math. It's not really all that complicated. You don't need a degree in in economics or finance in order to understand it. That all of this is being driven by these people who have a love for God and have a love for Christ, and somehow or another have been co-opted out of their stupidity into thinking that this is somehow something good. The fact of the matter is, those people who are supposedly God's chosen people, and who, Mike Huckabee very embarrassingly sat and affirmed are like the most moral people in the history of the world. How moral could they be? They're the ones who tried to have Christ killed himself, alayhi salam. How moral could they be? They're the ones who rejected him. This is completely, it's completely paradoxical. It makes no sense whatsoever. People need to snap out of it. And it's something Christians understood from the very beginning. And it's actually one of the great drivers of anti-Semitism in Christian societies back in the day, when Christians used to take their religion as a serious moral imperative for how society needed to be ordered. That idea and that attempt and that kind of project failed for very good reasons. And in the Muslim world, we would say, okay, Jews in the past did certain things, or they have a certain theology, or Christians for that matter. However, our theocratic rule was that we're not going to hold one group of people responsible for the other, for the actions of the other, and we're not going to give preferential treatment for one based on what happened in the past, or the other based on what happened in the past, or deferential treatment or whatever. And this is how Muslims lived with sizable, large, Christian and Jewish minorities until modern times. The only city in Europe that had an Orthodox church, a Catholic church, a synagogue, and a mosque all at the same time was Sarajevo, which was a Muslim city. Why? Precisely because we were able to have a system in which we tolerated people, and we let them live with some measure of dignity and some measure of fairness, whereas denominations of Christians like Catholics and Orthodox and Protestants couldn't even tolerate one another, much less people of other religions. But the thing is, we never had this idea that one group of people, if one of them commits murder, it's not a sin, that we're supposed to aid or abet them in it because somehow God has preferential love for one race over another. We never had that idea, and we never let that come in and corrupt our creed. Those who did let stupid things like that come in and corrupt their creed are very clearly called out by the Muslim tradition as being heterodox, and it's something that never took hold amongst us. This is a problem in America. Christians, if you don't like this, if you don't like people and you don't want people to abandon your religion for being immoral and not making any sense, you have to start calling these things out. Why? Because the first victims of it are the Christians in Palestine. And then thereafter, you also make your own religion lack credibility with people, and you drive people away from that religion toward atheism, toward Islam, toward other types of kind of pagan philosophies and whatnot. And although I would be happy to welcome every Christian in the world into Islam, let it be because of some virtue that they're drawn to in Islam. Let it not be something that is such a catastrophe that 10 people leave Christianity, one of them becomes a Muslim, and the other 9 of them just abandon the belief in God altogether. It just doesn't seem like a good look. It doesn't seem like a good outcome. It doesn't seem like anything in line with any of the aspirations of Christianity, much less Islam. And it's just really stupid. And so, we're in America. I'm not going to, I'm not going to deal with you based on my religion and you're not going to deal with me based on yours because I don't believe in your religion and you don't believe in mine. Lakum dinukum waliya din. You have your religion, you have your way, and I have mine. However, at least look at the documents of this country. You tell me somehow or another if we have government officials saying openly and clearly and biasing, certain unalienable rights endowed by the Creator, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That they are saying that there are certain people who have more right to those things than others, and that there are certain people whose rights are forfeit for the luxury of others, like stealing land and like free money, free healthcare, free weapons, free diplomatic cover, all this other nonsense. This is a clear, in the social contract that we have with one another as citizens of this country, this is a clear treachery and a betrayal of everything that our country was founded on, everything that it aspired to from day one. So we ask, that people take a serious look at that, and that they call out this blasphemy in the name of Christianity, in the name of religion, in the name of Christ, and in the name of God, alayhi salam, wa jalla wa ala, wa sallallahu ta'ala ala rasulih sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.